The lecture hall was massive, built to accommodate over 300 students from dozens of different species. Some sat in chairs, others floated in specially designed gravity fields, and a few existed in sealed environmental tanks filled with liquids their bodies required. This was the Galactic Academy of Stellar Sciences, the most prestigious educational institution in known space. And today's lesson was about the most dangerous places in the universe. Professor Velther stood at the front of the room. The crystalline being from the Luminate Collective refracted the light in beautiful patterns as it moved. Its voice came through translation devices that every student wore, allowing communication across species that had evolved on worlds billions of kilometers apart. Today we discuss Deathworlds, the professor announced. The holographic display behind it flickered to life, showing images of hostile planets. These are worlds where the conditions are so extreme that most life should not exist. Yet somehow, impossibly, life found a way. The first image showed a planet where temperatures swung from boiling to freezing within hours. The second displayed a world where the atmosphere was so thick it would crush most ships. The third showed oceans filled with compounds that dissolved flesh on contact. The Galactic Council has classified these worlds into categories, Velther continued. Class 1 through Class 12, with Class 12 being the most extreme. By law, no cadet is permitted to visit a Class 12 death world. The risk is simply too great. In the back row, Jiwon sat quietly. He looked entirely ordinary compared to the exotic aliens around him. 2 arms, 2 legs, bilateral symmetry, forward-facing eyes. His species was called human, and they were among the newest members of the galactic community. Humans had only achieved faster than light travel 30 years ago, and their presence in the academy was still something of a novelty. Next to Jiwon sat Hyunsik, another human. While most species sent their best and brightest to the academy, humans sent anyone who qualified and was willing to leave their homeworld. This democratic approach puzzled many aliens, who carefully selected their representatives. Professor, a student with tentacles, raised one appendage. Why would any intelligent species evolve on such a world? Wouldn't they go extinct before achieving civilization? An excellent question, Velther replied. The statistical probability is indeed vanishingly small, which is why the Council was shocked when the first Class 12 species achieved spaceflight. The hologram changed to show a blue and green planet. White clouds swirled across its surface. It looked almost peaceful from space. "This is Earth," Velther said. "Homeworld of the humans." Every alien in the room turned to stare at Jiwon and Hyunsik. Some expressions showed curiosity, others showed something closer to fear. Jiwon smiled. It was a human expression that many aliens found unsettling, showing teeth in a way that resembled a predator's threat display. "We prefer to call it home," he said calmly. The gravity alone, a student from a low-gravity species squeaked, "would crush my bones within minutes." The oxygen concentration, another added, is toxic to most species at those levels. And the weather patterns, a third student said, pulling up data on their personal screen. "It says here that Earth regularly produces storms with wind speeds exceeding 200 kilometers per hour. How does anything survive that?" Hyunsik leaned back in his chair with the casual confidence that seemed to come naturally to humans. "You adapt. You learn. You build stronger. Earth doesn't give you a choice." Professor Velther's crystalline form seemed to dim slightly. Which brings us to the core lesson. Humans are the only Class 12 Deathworld species in the Academy. Their very presence here represents an anomaly in our understanding of biology and evolution. "We're not that special," Jiwon said, though his smile suggested he didn't entirely believe his own words. "We're just stubborn." "Stubbornness," Velther said, "does not explain your species' bone density, which is 3 times galactic average. It does not explain your redundant organ systems, your adaptive immune response. or your ability to function in environments that would kill most beings in minutes. The professor brought up a new display showing human anatomy. Several students gasped at the complexity. Humans possess what we call aggressive biology, Velther explained. Their bodies are designed for survival in a hostile environment. They can consume and digest organic matter that is toxic to most species. They can survive temperature ranges that span over 50 degrees. Their healing factor allows them to recover from injuries that would be fatal to others. And perhaps most remarkably, they evolved as endurance predators. What does that mean? A student asked nervously. It means, Hinsik said quietly, that our ancestors hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We didn't need to be faster or stronger. We just needed to never stop coming. The room fell silent. The casual way Hinsik described his species' predatory nature was deeply disturbing to many of the herbivorous and filter-feeding species present. G1 noticed the discomfort and tried to lighten the mood. But that was thousands of years ago. These days, we mostly chase deadlines and degrees. A few students made sounds that the translators interpreted as nervous laughter. The point, Professor Velther said, is that the directive exists for good reason. Deathworlds are called Deathworlds because they kill. Even with protection, even with preparation, exposure to such environments is extraordinarily dangerous for most species. But not for humans, G1 said. It wasn't a question. No, Velther admitted. Not for humans. Which is why your species is granted special exemption to return home during academic breaks. G1 stood up slowly. When humans stood, other species were reminded that they were quite tall compared to galactic average. Professor, I have a question. If humans can survive on Earth, and if other species want to learn about hostile environment survival, wouldn't Earth be an ideal training location? The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Absolutely not, Velther said firmly. The directive is clear. No cadet may visit a Class 12 Deathworld regardless of reason. Even if that cadet signs a waiver acknowledging the risks? Even then, what if that cadet can prove they're adequately prepared? There is no adequate preparation for a Deathworld, Velther insisted. G1's smile returned, and this time there was something calculating in it. With respect, Professor, that's not what the Academy Charter says. Section 47 states that any cadet may challenge the Academy's assessment of their capabilities through practical demonstration. Professor Velther's crystalline structure flickered rapidly, which observers had learned meant intense emotion. You cannot be serious. You're proposing to take alien students to Earth. I'm proposing, G1 said carefully, that interested students be given the opportunity to prove they can handle it. With proper training, proper equipment, and proper supervision. It's madness. It's education, Hinsik countered, standing to join his fellow human. Isn't that what we're here for? The other students began talking among themselves, creating a chorus of clicks, whistles, harmonic tones, and translated speech. Some were horrified at the idea. But others, G1 noticed, looked intrigued. Professor Velther raised a crystalline appendage for silence. This discussion is over. Class dismissed. As the students filed out, G1 caught several aliens glancing at him with newfound curiosity. The seed had been planted. Now he just needed to see if it would grow. High in the Psyche waited until they were alone in the corridor. You know the council will never approve this. They will if we force their hand, G1 said. I've been reading the charter very carefully. If we can get enough volunteers, if we can design a proper training program, the Academy has to let us try. And if something goes wrong? If someone gets hurt? G1 looked out the nearest viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, invisible at this distance, was a small blue planet that had forged humanity in its harsh crucible. Then we'll deal with it, he said. But I think it's time the galaxy learned what we already know. Fear keeps you alive, but courage makes you strong. And Earth has a way of teaching both. 3 days after the lecture, Ji-won found himself standing before the Academy Commandant's Council. The chamber was designed in a semicircle, with each council member positioned at a station suited to their species' needs. Some breathed different atmospheres, others required different gravity fields, and one existed as a cloud of organized particles, held together by electromagnetic fields. Commandant Tyron sat at the center. The quadrupedal being had evolved on a moon with carefully controlled conditions, and every aspect of its body language conveyed skepticism. Its translator crackled to life. "Cadet Ji-won," Tyron began, "your petition has been reviewed. The answer is no. This discussion is over." "With respect, Commandant," Ji-won replied calmly, "I'm not asking for permission. I'm invoking my rights under the Academy Charter." He placed a data slate on the holographic projection table. The document appeared in the air between them, text scrolling in multiple languages and symbol systems. Section 47, Ji-won continued. The right of educational challenge. Any cadet may challenge the Academy's assessment of their capabilities by demonstrating practical application of skills. If successful, the Academy must acknowledge those capabilities. A ripple of surprise moved through the council members. Those with faces showed expressions of shock. Those without faces showed shock through color changes, electromagnetic pulses, or temperature fluctuations. That section, Tyron said slowly, was written for testing piloting skills or combat readiness, not for visiting Deathworlds. The Charter makes no such limitation, Hyunsik said, stepping forward from where he'd been waiting. The language is clear. We have the right to prove ourselves capable. This is absurd, Councilmember Threshneck hissed through his breathing apparatus. You want to take fragile alien students to a world where the weather alone could kill them? I want to give volunteers the opportunity to learn in a controlled environment, Ji-won corrected. With proper preparation, adequate training, and constant medical supervision. Another council member, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline matrix, pulsed with agitated colors. Do you have any concept of the danger? Earth has predators that hunt in coordinated packs. It has weather systems that generate destructive force beyond military weapons. The microbial diversity alone could trigger fatal immune responses in most species, which is exactly why this training is valuable, Ji-won argued. Every being in this room will eventually work in the Galactic Fleet or diplomatic corps. They'll encounter hostile environments, unknown pathogens, dangerous fauna. Better they learn in a controlled setting with experienced guides than face it unprepared in an emergency. The chamber fell into silence. Ji-won could see the council members exchanging glances, those that had eyes to exchange them with. You've given this considerable thought, Tyron observed. I have, Ji-won confirmed. And I'm not alone. He activated his data slate again. Names and signatures appeared in the projection field. 38 cadets representing 12 different species have volunteered. They understand the risks. They want the opportunity. They're children playing at being brave, Threshneck snapped. They have no idea what they're asking for. Then let them learn, Hyunsik said. Isn't that why we're all here? To learn? The chamber doors opened, and a third human entered. Minji was older than the cadets, a medical specialist who'd spent years studying alien physiology. She carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who'd seen enough to know when to be worried and when to be calm. Commandant, Minji said, bowing slightly in respect. I've reviewed the physiological data for each volunteer. With proper preparation, I believe we can minimize the risks to acceptable Academy standards. Acceptable standards? The energy being pulsed incredulously. Your world has gravity that would strain most species' cardiovascular systems. atmospheric pressure that requires adaptation, temperature variations that demand constant regulation, all of which can be managed with current technology, Minji replied. She brought up her own projection showing medical equipment and training protocols. Atmospheric regulators for species requiring different air mixtures, graduated gravity training to build necessary muscle structure, immune system preparation through controlled microbial exposure, and constant monitoring throughout the entire program. You're suggesting we treat a Deathworld as a classroom, Tyron said slowly. I'm suggesting we treat it as what it is, Ji-won said. A world. Yes, it's dangerous by galactic standards. But billions of humans live there safely every day. Children play there. Elderly beings spend their final years there. It's not a death sentence. It's a place, and places can be learned. A new council member spoke up. She was from the diplomatic corps, a species known for their careful consideration and measured responses. The real question isn't whether Earth is dangerous. The question is whether exposing our students to such danger serves an educational purpose that outweighs the risk. It does, Hyunsik said firmly. Every year, fleet personnel die because they panic in hostile environments. Diplomats fail negotiations because they can't function under stress. Scientists abort missions because they encounter conditions outside their comfort range. Earth can teach adaptation, resilience, and functional courage. Or it can kill them, Threshneck said bluntly. We won't let that happen, Minji promised. The program I've designed includes 6 weeks of intensive preparation. Physical conditioning, environmental studies, medical adaptation. We'll screen out anyone who can't handle the preliminary training. And on Earth itself, we'll have multiple safety protocols and immediate evacuation capabilities. You've really thought this through, Tyron observed. We have, Ji-won confirmed. Because we understand what's at stake. If this fails, humanity's reputation in the Academy suffers. If anyone gets seriously hurt, we'll be blamed. We're not taking this lightly. Another long silence filled the chamber. Ji-won could feel his heart beating in his chest. That reliable human organ that could function in conditions that would stop most alien circulatory systems. He'd practiced this presentation for days, but now it all came down to whether the council could see past their fear. I want individual statements from each volunteer, Tyron finally said. I want detailed medical assessments. I want a risk analysis that includes worst-case scenarios. And I want regular progress reports during the training phase. Ji-won felt hope flare in his chest. Does that mean it means we'll vote? Tyron interrupted. Council members, you've heard the arguments. This is unprecedented, potentially dangerous, but possibly valuable. How do you vote? The voting process took 10 minutes. Some members decided immediately. Others consulted data. A few requested private caucuses with their species representatives. Finally, Tyron announced the results. 7 in favor. 6 opposed. 2 abstentions. The motion carries. Ji-won let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. However, Tyron continued, and the word fell like a hammer. Understand this. At the first sign of significant danger, at the first serious injury, at the first indication that this program is causing more harm than good, it will be terminated immediately. Is that clear? Perfectly clear, Ji-won agreed. And one more thing, the commandant added. If this succeeds, it could revolutionize how we approach hostile environment training across the entire academy system. But if it fails, the consequences will fall primarily on humanity's reputation in the galactic community. Are you prepared for that responsibility? Ji-won looked at Hyunsik, then at Minji. Both gave him slight nods. We are, Ji-won said firmly, because we believe in what Earth can teach. Not just survival, but how to thrive in adversity. As they left the chamber, Yunsik muttered quietly. We just committed to taking dozens of aliens to Earth. Aliens whose immune systems never evolved to handle Earth's microbial load. What have we done? Something necessary, Jiwon replied. The galaxy treats Earth like a nightmare. Maybe it's time they learned. It's also where dreams are forged. Minji, walking slightly behind them, was already reviewing medical protocols on her data slate. She didn't mention that the biggest challenge wouldn't be preparing the aliens for Earth. It would be preparing Earth's biosphere for beings it had never encountered before. Humans had immune systems trained by billions of years of evolutionary warfare. These students had immune systems trained in sterile space stations. The next 6 weeks would determine whether humanity's faith in their homeworld was justified or catastrophically misplaced. And there was no middle ground. Either the students would adapt and thrive, or Earth would do what Deathworlds did best, teach the harshest lessons the universe had to offer. The training facility on lunar station Daedalus became a strange place over the following weeks. The station orbited Earth's moon, close enough to see the blue planet hanging in space, but far enough to maintain the sterile, controlled environment the alien students needed. While they prepared, Minji stood before the assembled volunteers in the main training hall. Behind her, a massive viewport showed Earth in all its chaotic beauty. Clouds swirled across oceans. Weather patterns moved and shifted with a dynamism that made the aliens uncomfortable just watching. Before we start, Minji said, I need you to understand something fundamental. Earth isn't trying to kill you. Earth doesn't care about you at all. It's not hostile. It's honest. The conditions on Earth are simply the baseline reality of that world, and those conditions happen to be lethal to most galactic species. She gestured to Earth. That planet doesn't adjust itself for visitors. You adjust to it, or you suffer the consequences. The volunteers sat in their various configurations. There were Velkith with their chitinous exoskeletons and compound eyes. There were Narani, whose bodies glowed with soft bioluminescence and required precise humidity levels. There were Ithran, who communicated through color patterns and possessed delicate sensory organs. And there were others, representing species from across known space. Deho, a young Velkith who'd adopted a human name as a gesture of respect, clicked his mandibles nervously. I've reviewed the atmospheric data. The oxygen concentration alone should cause cellular damage to my species within hours of exposure. It would, Yunsik confirmed, activating a holographic display if you were breathing it directly without preparation. But you won't be. The display showed a sleek device that resembled jewelry more than technology. Adaptive atmospheric regulators. They create a microenvironment around your respiratory system, adjusting the air mixture in real time. You'll still smell Earth, still feel Earth's air, but your lungs will receive the gas mixture your biology requires. A Narani named Arium raised one glowing appendage. What about gravity? I've read that Earth's gravitational constant is 1.3 times standard galactic norm. My species evolved in low-gravity environments. Won't Earth's pull damage my internal structure? It could, Jiwon admitted, which is why we're starting graduated resistance training today. 3 hours daily for 4 weeks. Your muscles will strengthen. Your bones will adapt. It won't be comfortable, but your bodies are more resilient than you think. Over the next weeks, the training intensified. The volunteers learned to move under increased gravity, their bodies struggling against the invisible force that humans took for granted. Some adapted quickly. Others required additional time and medical support. But gradually, they all improved. The biological briefing came on day 10, and it shook many volunteers to their core. Minji projected Earth's microbial diversity on the main screen. The numbers were staggering. Trillions of bacteria per cubic meter of soil. Millions per cubic meter of air. Thousands on every surface. Several students recoiled physically. "Your world is contaminated," one student gasped. "No," Minji corrected gently. "Our world is alive. Earth has a thriving microbial ecosystem, and it's essential to how the planet functions." She brought up an image of human cellular structure. A human body contains approximately 39 trillion microorganisms. Bacteria, fungi, viruses, all living in symbiotic relationships with our cells. They help us digest food, fight diseases, even regulate our moods. We're not individuals. We're walking ecosystems. The revelation created shocked silence. "You're saying," Ariam ventured slowly, "that humans aren't just tolerating these organisms. You need them?" "Exactly," Minji confirmed. "Most galactic species evolved in relatively sterile environments or developed aggressive immune responses that isolate you from foreign microbes. Humans evolved differently. We integrated them into our biology." Deho's mandibles clattered in what might have been distress. "And you expect us to expose ourselves to this microbial invasion?" "In a controlled way, yes," Minji said. "We've developed a prophylactic regimen, controlled introduction of selected Earth microbes to help your immune systems recognize and process them without overreacting. Think of it as teaching your body a new language." The microbial adaptation process was uncomfortable for many students. Some experienced mild fever-equivalent responses as their immune systems encountered foreign organisms. Others had digestive disturbances. But Minji monitored every response, adjusting the protocol for each species' unique biology. By week 3, they moved to environmental training. G1 stood in one of the station's adjustable environment simulators, which had been programmed to mimic various Earth conditions. The current setting showed a temperate forest at midday. "Earth rewards preparation and punishes assumptions," G1 explained, demonstrating how to read weather patterns from cloud formations. "The environment doesn't adapt to you. You adapt to it. That's the first lesson." He showed them how to identify safe water sources, how to recognize poisonous plants, how to read animal tracks. The students learned that on Earth, information meant survival and ignorance meant danger. The wildlife briefing came next. Hyunsik projected images of Earth's predators. "This is a wolf," he said, showing a pack hunting in snow. "Social predator, highly intelligent, territorial. Dangerous if threatened or hungry, but generally avoids humans. This is a bear. Solitary, omnivorous, extremely strong. Dangerous if surprised or if cubs are present. This is a venomous snake. Small, easily overlooked, potentially lethal if you don't watch where you step." With each image, the students grew more nervous. Earth seemed to have an endless variety of creatures that could kill them. "But here's what you need to understand," Hyunsik continued. "These animals aren't evil. They're not hunting you specifically. They're just living their lives. If you understand their behavior, respect their space, and don't act like prey, most of them will leave you alone." "How do we not act like prey?" Deho asked. "Confidence without aggression," Ji-won said. "Awareness without fear. Predators target weak, distracted, or isolated targets. Stay together, stay alert, and project capability. And most predators will decide you're not worth the effort." The psychological training came in week 5. Led by another human named Yoonji, she specialized in stress adaptation and had trained fleet personnel for hostile environment operations. EUNG created a nighttime forest simulation, complete with sounds. Rustling leaves, distant howls, the chirping of insects, the crack of branches. "Close your eyes," Yoonji instructed. "Listen. Tell me what you hear." "Danger," one student whispered. "Death," another added. "Chaos," a third concluded. But Deho, his mandibles still, seemed to be concentrating differently. "I hear patterns. The sounds repeat at intervals. There's a rhythm. Exactly right, Yunji said, smiling. Earth isn't chaos. It's a symphony that follows rules older than civilization. Predators hunt at specific times. Prey animals have warning calls. Weather follows thermodynamic patterns. Once you learn the language, you're not a victim of the environment. You're a participant in it. Something shifted in the students during that session. Fear began transforming into curiosity. The alien cadets started asking questions, not about survival, but about Earth's cultures, its ecology, its evolutionary history. By week 6, Minji ran final medical assessments. Every volunteer had adapted better than expected. Their cardiovascular systems had strengthened. Their immune systems had learned to recognize common Earth microbes without panic responses. Their psychological profiles showed increased stress tolerance and adaptive thinking. "You're ready," Minji announced during the final briefing. "You won't be comfortable on Earth. You'll be challenged every moment. But you're capable of handling it." Jiwon stood beside her. "In 3 days, we descend to Earth's surface. The landing site is a protected ecological preserve in the Baekdu Mountains. Moderate climate, diverse ecosystem, minimal human presence. You'll spend 1 week there, learning to navigate an actual Deathworld environment." He paused, meeting the eyes of various students. "I won't lie to you. This will be the hardest thing most of you have ever done. Earth demands your full attention, your complete effort, your best self. But it also offers something most civilized worlds have lost." "What's that?" Ariam asked. "The truth," Jiwon said simply. "That life is struggle, adaptation, and beauty all at once. That comfort and growth rarely coexist. That the universe doesn't care about your feelings, but rewards your effort." As the students filed out to prepare for departure, Hyunsik pulled Jiwon aside. "We've done everything we can," Hyunsik said quietly. "The rest is up to them and Earth." "Earth will be fair," Jiwon replied. "It always is. Respected, and it teaches. Disrespected, and it corrects. And if someone panics? If someone gets hurt despite all precautions?" Jiwon looked out at Earth, that blue marble that had forged humanity through millions of years of harsh lessons. "Then we deal with it," he said. "But I think they're stronger than they know. Earth has a way of showing people what they're capable of." 3 days later, the transport prepared for descent. The real test was about to begin. The transport shuddered as it hit Earth's upper atmosphere. Inside the passenger compartment, the alien students gripped their seats with whatever appendages they possessed. They'd read about atmospheric entry. They'd trained in simulators. But nothing had prepared them for the reality of descending through the turbulent gases of a death world. "The ship is breaking apart," a Narani cadet gasped, her bioluminescence flickering in panic patterns. "That's just atmospheric friction," Jiwon called out calmly from his seat. He wasn't even holding on. "This is a normal entry. We're not in rough weather yet." "Rough weather?" Daeho's translator barely conveyed his horror. His chitinous plates rattled against each other. Hyan Saike grinned, apparently enjoying the alien's discomfort. "Wait until you experience a real storm. Then you'll understand why humans invented poetry. We needed words to describe beauty that could kill you." The transport descended through layers of clouds. Through the viewports, the alien students caught glimpses of Earth's surface. Mountains rising like teeth from the landscape. Forests covering hillsides and shades of green they'd only seen in databases. Rivers cutting through valleys with the patient persistence of liquid water following gravity. "It's so wild," Ariam whispered. "Nothing is straight. Nothing is organized. How do you navigate such chaos?" "You learn the patterns," Minji said, checking her medical scanner one last time. "Earth follows rules. They're just different rules than what you're used to." The landing site appeared below them. a clearing in a vast forest, surrounded by mountains that scraped the sky. The transport settled with a gentle thump that still made several students flinch. Then came the moment they'd all been dreading and anticipating. The transport's door opened, and Earth's atmosphere rushed in. For the human cadets, it was the smell of home, pine needles and rich soil, the distant promise of rain, the clean scent of high-altitude air. It was the smell of every camping trip, every hike, every moment spent away from artificial life support. For the alien students, it was overwhelming. Ariam's nasal membranes flared as thousands of scent molecules flooded her sensory system. She could smell the trees, yes, but also the decomposition in the soil, the pollen in the air, the complex organic chemistry of a living ecosystem. Her atmospheric regulator was working perfectly, but her brain struggled to process the sheer amount of information. Beho's antennae twitched rapidly, reading temperature gradients, humidity levels, air pressure, and chemical signatures. His instincts screamed danger at the unfamiliar input, but his training told him to stay calm and analyze. "It's so alive," Ariam said finally. "Every breath has particles from thousands of organisms." "Welcome to Earth," Minji said, smiling. She was watching her medical scanner carefully, monitoring everyone's biometrics. Heart rates were elevated but stable. Stress hormones were high but manageable. No one was in danger yet. "How do you feel?" Ji-won asked the group. "Heavy," Daho admitted. "Like I'm wearing a suit full of water." "Is this the gravity?" "Yes," Ji-won confirmed. "Your muscles are working harder than usual just to keep you upright. It'll get easier as you adjust. Give it an hour and your body will find its rhythm." The first test was simple. A quarter-kilometer hike through temperate forest to their base camp. For the humans, it was a pleasant walk. For the aliens, it was a journey through an alien landscape that defied everything they understood about safe environments. The forest was dense. Trees grew at random angles, fighting for sunlight. Underbrush cluttered the ground in chaotic patterns. Insects buzzed through the air on paths determined by instinct and air currents. Birds called from branches, their songs carrying information about territory and mates and danger. 50 meters from the transport, a deer burst from the underbrush without warning. The alien students froze in terror. The creature was massive by their standards, easily 200 kilograms of muscle and bone. It bounded through the forest with powerful legs, white tail flashing like a warning beacon. "Predator?" A Velkith cadet hissed, preparing to flee. "Prey animal," Hyunsik corrected calmly. "Herbivore." "See how it ran from us?" A predator would have behaved differently. Low approach, focused attention, silence before the strike. That deer was more afraid of us than we should be of it. But it was so large, the student protested. And so fast. "Earth favors size and speed," Yoonji explained, helping a student who'd stumbled over a root. "High gravity means strong muscles. Competitive ecosystems mean evolutionary pressure. Everything here is tougher than it needs to be by galactic standards because Earth demands it." They continued hiking. The students began noticing details. The way sunlight filtered through leaves in patterns that shifted with the breeze. The sound of a stream somewhere ahead, water flowing over rocks. The texture of bark on trees, each species different. The surprising softness of moss growing on the north side of stones. When they reached the stream, Ariam stopped and stared. "The water is moving," she said, mesmerized. "It's called a current," Yoonji explained. "Water flows downhill because of gravity. It's part of Earth's hydrological cycle. Rain falls, water flows to the ocean, evaporates, forms clouds, falls again. It's been cycling like this for billions of years." Ariam knelt beside the stream, carefully extending one glowing appendage to touch the water. It was cold and clear and filled with tiny organisms she could barely see. "It sounds musical," she said softly. "Humans have written thousands of poems about running water," Unji said. "Now you understand why." At the camp, the real education began. The humans had set up a central area with simple shelters, medical equipment, and supplies. But they deliberately kept things minimal. The students needed to interact with Earth's environment, not hide from it. Jiwan gathered everyone around a prepared fire pit. "Fire was humanity's first technology," he said, arranging wood and tinder. "We're going to make it the way our ancestors did. Because understanding basics keeps you alive when advanced technology fails." He demonstrated the bow drill method, using friction to create heat. Heat to create embers, embers to create flame. The alien students watched in fascination as smoke appeared, then a glowing coal, then actual fire. "You're creating a chemical reaction," Deho observed. "Rapid oxidation releasing energy as heat and light. But you're doing it with sticks. Our ancestors did this for hundreds of thousands of years before we had advanced technology," Jiwan replied, coaxing the small flame into a larger fire. "When your equipment fails, when your power runs out, understanding fundamental principles keeps you breathing." That evening, they sat around the fire as Earth's sun set. The alien students had never experienced a natural day-night cycle. On space stations, lighting was constant and controlled. On their homeworlds, many species lived underground or in carefully regulated environments. But here, darkness came gradually. The sky shifted from blue to orange to purple to deep black. Stars emerged one by one, and the Milky Way blazed across the heavens with a clarity that station dwellers never witnessed. "The stars are so bright," one student whispered in awe. "No light pollution here," Minji explained. "We're far from cities. This is what our ancestors saw every night. A sky that reminded them they were part of something vast and ancient." Then the forest sounds began, nocturnal creatures emerging. Owls calling as they began their hunts. Small mammals rustling through underbrush. Insects creating a symphony of chirps and buzzes. In the distance, something larger moved through the forest. Breaking branches to the alien students, it sounded like a nightmare. Every sound could be danger. Every shadow could hide a predator to the humans. It was a lullaby. "Nothing here will attack the camp," Hyunsik assured them. "We're too large, too numerous, and we have fire. Predators choose easier prey. They're energy-efficient hunters, not mindless killers. But they're out there," Deho said. "Watching." "Always," Jiwan agreed. "That's what makes you alert, aware, alive. Earth doesn't coddle its children. It teaches them to pay attention." Around midnight, a summer rainstorm rolled through. The alien students scrambled for shelter, but Ariam paused. She stood at the edge of the camp, face tilted upward as water fell from the sky. "It's warm," she said, surprised. "Summer rain," Yunji explained, standing beside her. "In winter, this would be snow. Frozen water crystals." Ariam spread her arms, letting the rain fall on her. Her bioluminescence pulsed in patterns that her translator read as pure wonder. "I understand now," she said. "This isn't a death world. It's a world that demands you be fully present, fully engaged, fully alive." One by one, the other students joined her in the rain. They stood together, aliens and humans, letting Earth's weather wash over them. And for the first time since arriving, they weren't just surviving Earth, they were experiencing it. But Jiwan, watching from the shelter, noticed something on his motion scanner. Something large was moving through the forest, moving toward the camp. The local wildlife had gone silent, which meant a major predator was hunting. The real test was about to begin, and morning was still hours away. The bear emerged from the tree line, just as the first light of dawn touched the mountain peaks. It was an Asiatic black bear, roughly 200 kilograms of muscle, fur, and millions of years of evolutionary perfection. Its black coat shimmered in the early light, and the distinctive white V-mark on its chest made it easily identifiable to the human cadets, who'd woken at Jiwan's quiet alert. It was a magnificent animal. Dangerous if provoked, certainly, but predictable if you understood its behavior. To the alien students, stumbling from their shelters in confusion, it was a nightmare made real. Deho's chitinous plates clattered in pure terror. Apex Predator. Class 4 threat rating according to the database. Class 2 at most, Jiwan said quietly but firmly. His voice had that particular tone of command that cut through panic. Everyone stay exactly where you are. Don't run. Don't make sudden movements. Running triggers chase instinct in predators. The bear paused about 50 meters from the camp, its nose working the air. Its sense of smell was extraordinary, and the camp offered dozens of scents it had never encountered before. Alien biology, unfamiliar food stores, strange chemical signatures. Curiosity, not hunger, had drawn it here. What's it doing? Ariam whispered, her bioluminescence pulsing with fear patterns she couldn't suppress. Evaluating, Yinsik murmured, moving slowly to stand beside Jiwan, deciding if we're worth the energy expenditure. Bears are intelligent. They calculate risk versus reward. What do we do? Another student asked, trembling. We communicate, Jiwan said. He stood slowly, deliberately making himself larger. He raised his arms above his head, increasing his apparent size. Then he shouted, Hey! Hey, bear! The alien students stared in absolute horror. Their human guide was making noise, attracting the predator's attention, deliberately drawing it toward them. Every instinct they possessed screamed that this was suicide, but the bear's reaction wasn't what they expected. It huffed, a sound that resonated through its chest. It swung its massive head from side to side, a gesture that bear experts would recognize as uncertainty. Then it took a step backward. Minji, Jiwan said calmly, never taking his eyes off the bear. When I say the word, activate the sonic deterrent. 3-second burst. Ready, Minji confirmed, her hand hovering over a small device. Now, a high-frequency sound pulse rolled across the clearing. It was uncomfortable for humans, making them wince. For the bear, with its sensitive hearing, it was intolerable. The animal wheeled and crashed back into the forest, breaking branches in its haste to escape the unpleasant sensation. The alien students remained frozen for 30 full seconds after the bear disappeared. Their minds struggled to process what they'd just witnessed. You challenged it, Deho finally managed to say. You made yourself a target. I communicated with it, Jiwan corrected, lowering his arms slowly. That bear wasn't hunting. It was investigating. I showed it that we were aware, alert, and potentially troublesome. It made a rational choice to leave. But if it had attacked, Ariam started. Then we had graduated responses ready, Yunji explained, revealing the defensive equipment they'd prepared. Noise which we used. Chemical irritants which repel without permanent harm. And as absolute last resort, sedative projectiles. Killing a bear would be a failure. We're guests in its territory, not conquerors. You planned for this, Deho said. It wasn't a question. We planned for many scenarios, Hyunsik confirmed. Earth is dangerous, yes. But danger can be managed if you understand it. The bear was never the real threat. Panic was the real threat. If you'd run, it might have chased. If you'd screamed in the wrong way, it might have felt challenged. But you stayed calm, and we handled it. The incident became a turning point. Over the following days, the students began to understand Earth's fundamental lesson. Coexistence through awareness, not domination through force. Ji-won taught them to read animal tracks. The difference between predator and prey. How to tell fresh tracks from old ones. What direction the creature was moving. Whether it was walking calmly or running from something. Eunji showed them weather patterns. How to read the sky for coming rain. How wind direction indicated temperature changes. How clouds formed and what each formation meant. Earth's weather follows rules, she explained. Chaotic rules, complex rules, but rules nonetheless. Yoon-sik taught plant identification. Which plants were edible, which were medicinal, which were toxic. And sometimes, he said with a grin, the same plant can be all three depending on how you prepare it and how much you consume. Earth doesn't label things clearly. You have to learn. Ariam proved surprisingly talented at pattern recognition. Her species had evolved to communicate through complex bioluminescent signals, which translated into an intuitive grasp of ecosystem patterns. She could look at a forest section and predict what animals would be found there based on plant types and water sources. Daeho, despite his initial terror, became fascinated by Earth's arthropods. He spent hours watching ants build colonies, bees pollinate flowers, spiders construct webs. They're like my distant evolutionary cousins, he marveled. But they evolved to fit Earth's conditions. I evolved to fit different ones. And yet the basic programming is similar. On the fifth day, they encountered a snake. It was a small viper, coiled on a rock to absorb the morning sun. Venomous, potentially lethal if it bit in the wrong location. The students froze when Ji-won pointed it out. But this time, their freeze was different. Not panic, but cautious respect. It's not interested in us, Ji-won explained quietly. We're too large to eat, and it knows we're too dangerous to attack without cause. As long as we respect its space, it respects ours. They gave the snake a wide berth and continued their hike. Later, Daeho commented, I would have screamed and run on the first day. Today I just watched it and walked around. Earth is teaching me to think before reacting. On the final day, Ji-won led them to a mountain overlook. The valley sprawled below them, layer upon layer of green forest. A river caught the afternoon sun, looking like a ribbon of liquid silver threading through the landscape. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks touching low clouds. This is what you came to understand, Ji-won said, gesturing at the view. Earth isn't hostile. It's honest. It doesn't pretend to be safe. It doesn't cushion failure. But it also offers something most civilized worlds have lost. What's that? A student asked. The truth that life is struggle, adaptation, and beauty all at once, Ji-won replied. That comfort and growth rarely coexist. That the universe rewards effort and punishes complacency. Ariam stood at the cliff edge, her bioluminescence pulsing with colors that the translator struggled to interpret. Finally, it settled on profound satisfaction. I spent my entire life in climate-controlled habitats, Ariam said softly. Perfect temperature, perfect humidity, perfect safety. I never knew that air could have taste. That water could have personality. That danger could be beautiful. Your report to the academy is due in 1 week, Minji reminded them. What will you tell them? Daeho's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. I will tell them that their classification is correct. Earth is a Class 12 death world. The conditions here would kill most galactic species without preparation. But I will also tell them the classification is incomplete. How so? Hyunsik asked. It should read, Class 12 death world. Class 1 educational resource, Daeho said firmly. Because what Earth teaches is worth the risk. The formal presentation to the Academy Council happened via holoconference. The students were still on Earth's surface, still surrounded by the forest they'd learned to navigate. Each species representative spoke about their experience, and their words were broadcast across the Galactic Educational Network. "We came to Earth expecting to survive," Ariam said during her portion. "We learned instead to live. There's a difference. Survival is avoiding death. Living is engaging fully with existence, accepting both danger and beauty. Our biometric data," Minji added, presenting medical scans, "shows no lasting harm. Actually, the data shows improvements in stress response, adaptive thinking, and problem-solving under pressure." Commandant Tyron's holographic image flickered with what might have been approval. "The Council has reviewed your progress reports. The experiment is declared successful. However, I must ask, was it worth the risk?" Deho stepped forward. "Commandant, I have a question for the Council. If humanity's Deathworld can teach us this much, what could we learn from the universe's other dangerous places? What if we've been avoiding our greatest teachers out of fear?" The comment created a long silence across the communication channel. "You're suggesting we reconsider centuries of safety protocols?" Tyron asked slowly. "I'm suggesting safety and growth are not always compatible," Deho replied. "And that humans have proven something we should have known. The universe doesn't reward comfort. It rewards adaptation." 3 months later, the Academy established the Hostile Environment Training Initiative. Deathworlds across the galaxy were re-evaluated, not as places to avoid, but as classrooms to embrace. Human advisors became the most sought-after instructors in the Academy. Earth opened its first permanent alien research station in Siberia, where students could experience winter conditions. A second station opened in the Amazon rainforest. A third in the Australian outback. Each location offered different lessons, different challenges,